This tutorial is for 5th grade, Module 6, Lesson 1. In Module 6, we will be looking at plotting shapes and points on a coordinate plane. In Lesson 1, we'll look at what it means to give a coordinate to a point on a number line. The directions say each shape was placed at a point on number line S. Give the coordinate of each point below. So the word coordinate basically refers to the point on the number line where each shape appears. So if I look at my number line, I have the 0 on the left side and it's counting up as we move from left to right. I'll find the X on the number line and you can see that it is at point 3. So the coordinate for X is 3. If I look for the star, well, the star is between 0 and 1. This section has been divided into 3 equal parts, and the star is after 2 of those sections, so the star would be at 2/3. If we look for the circle is one section after the 2, so its coordinate would be 2 1/3. And then for the square, it is found 2 sections after the 4, so its coordinate would be 4 2/3. In the next section, we're actually going to plot some points on number lines. So the first one says plot point A, so its distance from the origin is 2. The origin is the 0 point on the number line. So 0 would be the origin, and I need to put an A 2 places past the origin. So we see the 0 and the 3, so I know that the first point would be 1, the second point would be 2. So that's where I'll put my A. It's 2 away from the origin. For question B, it says plot R so that its distance from the origin is 5/2. And again, the 0 is the origin, and you can see that the sections have been divided into halves. So the first point is 1/2. The next point would be 2/2. Then I have 3/2. This would be 4/2. And finally, I have 5/2, and that's where I need to put the R for 5/2. I'm going to do the same thing for the next section, but you notice that the origin, or the 0, is not marked on the number lines. In fact, on my first number line, it starts with 50 on the left-hand side, and as we move down the number line, the numbers are actually getting smaller. So on this number line, the origin is on the right-hand side of the number line. And if I count, if I go from 50 down to 35, each section must be worth 5, because I would go 45, then 40, down to 35, 30, 25, and 20. If we're to plot L, so its distance from the origin is 20, that means that the L needs to be 20 away from the origin. And again, since the origin is on the right, we just move to the 20 and we'll put our L there. On the next number line, it starts at 5 at the top and goes down to 4 at the bottom. So this whole section has been divided into sixths. There are 6 equal pieces. And you can see the 4 2/6 here, which confirms that. Now the directions say plot a point T, so its distance from the origin is 2/6 more than that of S. Well, the origin would be down further on the number line, and again the origin would be 0. So we have our S, and we need to plot a point that's 2/6 more than the S. So I'm just going to move up 2 sections and put my T there, because it is 2/6 more than the point S. Here I have number line G, and you'll notice that on this number line the origin is on the right hand side, so if we read it from left to right, the numbers are going down, and we need to plot the points. Question A says plot point A at 3/4. Well, each section has been divided into fourths, so I'm going to start at my origin, the 0, and move over 3 sections, or 3/4, and I'll put my A there. The next section says label a point that lies at 4 1/2, and we'll call that B. So I'll start at my 4. I'm going to move toward the 5, because I know that 4 1/2 is between 4 and 5. I also know that 4 and 1/2 is the same thing as 4 and 2/4. So I can find that middle point to show 1/2, which also shows 2/4. So 4 and 2/4 would be between 4 and 5. The next question says, label a point C whose distance from 0 is 5 more than that of A. Well, if you remember, A was found at 3/4. So if I need a point that's 5 more than that, then that point would be found at 5 and 3/4, because 5 and 3/4 is 5 more than 3/4. So if I go to 5, I know that 5 and 3/4 would be between 5 and 6. So I'll plot that point. There's 5 and 3/4. We'll call that C, and its coordinate is 5 and 3/4. The next question says, plot a point D whose distance from 0 is 1 1/4 less than that of B. Well, if you remember, B's coordinate was 4 and 2/4. So I need to go 1 1/4 less than B. I can look at that as 4 and 2/4 minus 1 1/4. Subtract my whole numbers. 4 minus 1 is 3. Subtract my fractions. 2/4 minus 1/4 is 1/4. So I need to plot D at the 3 1/4 point. So I'll start at my 3. I know it's going to be between 3 and 4. So here's 3 1/4, and that is point D. And its coordinate is 3 1/4. Let's look at two more questions. This one says the distance of E from 0 is 1 3/4 more than that of D, and we are to plot point E. Well, D's coordinate was 3 1/4. If I need to go 1 3/4 past that, it's the same thing as adding 1 3/4. I'll start by adding my whole numbers. 3 plus 1 is 4. 1/4 plus 3/4 is 4/4, and 4/4 is the same as 1 whole. So 4 and 1 would equal 5. So that means that point E gets plotted at 5. And my final question says, what is the coordinate of the point that lies halfway between A and D? And we are to label this point F. So I have A and D. I'm going to count how many fourths I have between A and D. So I have 1/4 here, and then from 1 to 2, that's 4, so that's 5/4. Another 4 would be 9/4, and then to D would be 10/4. So from A to D would be 10/4. The halfway point would be 5/4. So if I start at A and count over 5/4, that would give me the halfway point. There's 5/4 between F and A, and 5/4 between F and D. So F is the halfway point, and its coordinate is 2.